Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. Dave Peltz, and joining me as always, my esteemed colleague is Dr. Joe Hamlett. How are you doing today, Dr. Joe?
I'm doing very well, Dave. How are you doing today?
Apparently I'm doing well after 4 cups of coffee. I mean, I can't imagine what I'll be like after six. So,
Right. Okay.
so I'd like to thank our viewers and listeners for joining us again, and welcome you back. As usual, our usual format is one of us introduces the topic, and today that is lucky me. And then I get to pitch that topic over to Joe, who's going to give us his thoughts on it. Then we're going to banter back and forth like we do. So today's topic is keeping the dream alive. Keeping the dream alive. So,
Okay.
Dr. Joe, what are your thoughts on keeping your dream or a dream or many dreams alive?
Well, Dave, this is almost new to me. And I'll tell you why I say that. So again, back as a kid, and I probably told the story before. Everybody thought I was going to be this big kid. I love basketball, and so everybody thought I was going to be this big kid, and so my idol was Dr. J. And
Mhm.
as I started getting older, in my teen years, I realized I wasn't going to be as tall as Dr. J or have the opportunity to play in the NBA like him. And
Mhm.
so at that time, my dream was to be just like Dr. J. And so when I realized I wasn't going to be Dr. J, I really don't remember dreaming after that.
Mm.
But what's funny or ironic now is the fact that I am Dr.
Dr.
J.
J.
So, you
You're your
know,
own version of Dr. J.
my own version exactly. I don't play basketball. I don't play one on TV or anything like that. But I am literally Dr. J. And so it's just ironic because that didn't come into my mind that I now will go become earn my doctorate and be Dr. J.
Mhm.
It's just funny how that ended up. But so now when I think of, keeping the dream alive, I am very intentional about it. I,
Mhm.
I, set a goal for myself and then I work towards that goal, not just hoping or, win the lottery or, luckily I get accepted or anything like that. I try to do as much as I can to ensure that I have a better chance of achieving that goal or whatever that dream is I have in my head. So,
Mhm.
yeah, rather than, the wild eyed kid thinking I'm going to be Dr. J or having a dream like that, or even other kids, that wanted to be a astronaut or a doctor or whatever they wanted to be, but to really put put it in practice that I'm going to get it, I'm going to achieve it. And
Mhm.
that's how I keep my dream alive now, is to focus on that goal. And of course we all face adversity, we all face obstacles, barriers, roadblocks, all those things that may postpone or hinder us from reaching that, keeping that dream alive. But that's when it takes, maybe sometimes you have to take a step back. You may have to
Mhm.
pause. But the
Mhm.
the idea that you still have that dream in mind or in your head, you'll eventually get there. So
Wow.
I'll end with that for now.
Yeah, I really like what you said about being intentional and just working at it. That's pretty profound to me because when I was growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I fell in love with drawing. And I'm like, well, I'm going to teach art. And so when I got out of high school, instead of teaching art, I went into the military and went into the military police career field because that's really pretty much same, right?
Right,
Oh, you like to draw? Draw maps. Find your way through these trees.
right.
So yeah, it wasn't until uh, probably midway through my career that I decided, I'm gonna my dream is going to get a college education. I was tired of where I was at without a college degree. I felt I was struggling. I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't really doing what I wanted to do in my career. So I just thought, well, I'm going to get a college degree. That's my dream because I never thought I could do it. So I'm going to make this dream happen and use that as my ticket to a better life. So I thought, and it did. It really did. It opened up a lot of opportunities, but it was a lot more work than I'd anticipated. And there were times that I was really challenged. I tell the story to some of my students about my desire to not take college math. And out of my desire to not take college math, I tried to test out of it. And I bought the college textbook. I went cover to cover. I took the 2-hour exam and I didn't make it. I missed it by 2 points. And I think I've told this story once or twice before in our dialogues. And one of my colleagues saw me walking out to my car, and my head was low, and I was just, beating myself up. And they're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I didn't pass." And they're like, "What'd you get?" And I said, "Well, I missed it by 2 points." And they're like, "That's something to be proud of. You just taught yourself college math.
Right.
How do you think
Right.
you're going to do in the class if you just missed by 2 points?" And I'm like, it's a different perspective. So,
Right.
it revitalized that dream of getting my bachelor's degree. And so um, that being intentional is really, really important, because you cannot let brief moments of failure or these little misses or even big misses stop you from achieving your dreams, whatever those dreams are, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a vehicle, something monetary, physical, intangible, like a college education, whatever your dream is, you have to be intentional about it. So when you said
Right.
intentional, it really, really resonated with me, because like you said, it's not just luck. It's not just going to get handed to you. It's something that you have to work towards. And we were talking offline before this episode, and there are so many athletes and entertainers out there at various levels of their careers that, didn't stop because they wanted that so bad that they made it
Right.
happen.
Yeah.
And they were told no so many times, and you're not good at this, you're never going to achieve this, you're
Right.
nothing, and so just give up on it and go do something else. And they didn't. They had that intentionality behind their dream, and now some of them are renowned globally for what they've achieved.
Right.
So when we talk about being intentional, I think that's a huge piece of this. Yeah, I think another piece is being committed to yourself and your dreams, not letting anyone else
Yeah.
tell you you can't, which was a big part of why I wanted to go to college so bad after I realized, and I'd matured enough, because I was told so many times, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I let people get into my head, and you can't let people do that. You can't let them take that away from you. You can't give them that power to take your
Yeah.
dreams. You have to keep your dreams alive. So I'm going to pause.
Yeah. And Dave, you brought up a very good point about allowing someone else to dictate where you end up, and that's really what happened to me. With my dream as a kid of being, a famous basketball player or NBA player, was that I let other people's ideas of what they thought I was going to
Yeah.
accomplish change the way I felt, because I later learned that if I would have stayed with it, kept playing and practicing, I could have been a very good basketball player. And so now I
And
do
you're way better than me.
well, I mean, even in terms of being a very good player and possibly making it to college and beyond that, but I didn't give myself a chance because I allowed other people to say, hey, you don't have what it takes, or and I not having a role model that could help me with that, or someone to see that in me. I was alone, and again, been a young
Right.
kid, not really knowing that I had the ability to do that. But now I do understand that, and that's why I reflect on that so often, because I know now that if given a redo or being able to redo that situation, then I would approach it differently. But I also like the fact that you said, oh wow, just lost my train of thought.
All right, you'll jump back on that train.
Yeah, but I think that's very important, that piece of it, that you allow someone else to dictate or change your trajectory
Yeah.
because of what their thoughts are, how they feel about the situation. But I think back though, when you talk about education piece and, achieving that goal of earning a doctorate, I often, people ask me now, how did I do that? And it was commitment. It was being intentional about finishing my degree.
Mhm.
And, I think back now, and I really do kind of wonder, how did I do that? And I think
Exactly.
it was that fuel, that being intentional. And then I think the other piece of that too was, people kept telling me the same thing like you don't need to do that, or you'll never
Mhm.
do that. And I think
Why
that
are you
also
doing
added,
that?
right. And why are you doing? I got that a lot. And I think that also added to the fuel as well,
Mhm.
to motivate me to continue to push forward. So yeah, I agree with you
Yeah,
exactly.
and I like where you're going with the fuel thing, because that kind of, it's a good segue into another aspect of this. It's, what do you do when when you're being put down, or having a lot of shade thrown on you? What do you do to keep that fire alive in your gut? And and for me, it reminds me of going back through my early training in the military. They taught us a lot of valuable lessons about keeping going even beyond what you think you can do, and your
Right,
physical limits and your mental limits, and just pressing through. So when we talk about that fuel, that spark, that that whatever that it is that's driving you, how do you keep that alive when there's potentially a lot of, so much negativity or oppression around you, saying, no, you can't do it, or why are you doing this, all this negativity? What do you do to keep that dream alive? What are you doing to keep that dream alive? What's driving you? How do you rekindle that spark? How do you blow that spark into a flame again, and then the raging bonfire that's just driving you to success? So I think about what was driving me, and it gets back to one of the things you mentioned, and that's commitment, not just commitment in the general sense, but commitment to myself and commitment to my family,
right,
and that
yep,
commitment to following through, and in some ways and sometimes proving others wrong, saying, hey, I can do this. You don't know me, you don't know what I'm capable
right,
of, and I'm going to prove wrong, or I'm going to prove to myself and be that role model to my family and to my son, and to say, hey, I can do this, and to other people, because when you start doing things, when you start becoming successful, whatever your definition of success is, people start noticing you, and they start wanting to understand what you're doing, that recipe for success that we've talked about. What's that game plan or that map look like? And like we said, it's different for every one of us, but you have to, again, the self-reflection piece, you have to understand what's really driving you to get through these roadblocks, these obstacles, the naysayers, the end of the road. In this road, you go down this road, and it's all of a sudden it's a cul-de-sac. What do you do? Do you stop, or do you
right.
turn around and find another way around it? So I think understanding what's driving you, what's keeping that dream alive, is important. Whether it's your faith, whether it's someone important in your life, whether it's just being able to say that you did that. I mean, it's just, you have to understand that, and you have to dig really deep, and you have to be really honest with yourself about how bad you really, really want this. Because if you say you want it, but you really don't, you're not willing to put in the work, like you said, you're not going to achieve it. You have to put in the work and the effort to make these things happen, and know that there's going to be obstacles, and you have to have that perseverance to go over, and sometimes just go right through it to get to the other side, to keep going.
Dave, you bring up a very good point, and that's being honest with yourself. Because yeah, if you doing it again for someone else, or
Mhm.
because they recommend it, then you're probably not going to complete it as much as you would if it was
You're
your
not doing it
own
for the right
idea.
reason.
Right. Yeah, that's very important. I've seen so many people, or heard so many people say, "Hey, I was working on this, but then I dropped it because I realized I was doing it for the wrong reasons." So that is very important to really understand why you're trying to achieve whatever that goal is, or that milestone you set for yourself.
Mhm.
So it goes back to that critical self-reflection. It also goes back to, and I'll continue to say this, just having an open opening your mind to the possibilities.
Mm,
I think that's what drives me further now than anything.
yeah.
Of course, the motivators, my family, and achieving things that I didn't think I could achieve. Those are definitely motivators. But I also think of um, just the fact that, man, I keep losing my train of thought today. Um,
Gotta have more coffee, bro.
I think I might have had too much. But yeah, just opening your mind to the possibilities, it is again a driving factor for me, just because now that I have achieved a lot of different things that I didn't know I was capable of,
Yeah.
I now know that I am able to go around barriers and achieve things that, again, I'd never seen people that I knew achieve, but now knowing that I have the ability to do that. And it just
Mhm.
takes that consistency, that commitment, that discipline, and being intentional. I think we can accomplish so many things if we do get our mindset to um, being intentional about what we want. And you said it too. You say you want to do something, but you're not committed to it. You're not doing the things you need to do to get you to that next level.
Mm.
And so that's what me and Dave talk about all the time. Yeah, you can say you want to do something, you can have this plan mapped out, but if you don't take action against
Mhm.
it or towards it, then you won't achieve those goals.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I'm liking this conversation a lot. It the piece that you mentioned about why you're doing this, is imperative, because if you're trying to be like someone else, you may
Right.
be missing
Yep.
the mark. You may not be honest with yourself and the true why behind what you're doing. If you're doing it because it was someone else's recipe or whatever, that may not be the right reason. One of my mentors told me, um, he was talking about his son, a military veteran. He said, "Dave, my kids' journeys are not my journey. Our path is different.
Yep.
I just want them to be successful." And I thought that was really important. And it really did, as much as it sunk in at that time, it really didn't click until a few years later, when I was working with another team. And, as passionate as we are about higher education, this person said, a wonderful colleague, she said, "Dave, I get your passion about higher education, but college isn't for everybody."
Right.
And I'm
Yep.
like, then I circled right back to it. My military mentor said, "Your journey is not necessarily someone else's journey. You need to
Right.
understand and appreciate them for what they want to do and where they want to be, and help them to help them with their dreams. So what can we do to help others keep their dreams alive instead of hindering their dreams?" So understanding that why is really important. Why are you going for this dream? What are you trying to achieve, and why are you trying to achieve it? And then the other question is, who's there to help you, to support you with that why?
Right.
Because if they're not helping you and they're there to hinder you, unfortunately, you can be best friends, but if they're there just throwing obstacles and standing in your way, unfortunately, you might have to set them aside for a little bit or leave them behind. And
Right.
that's
Yep.
not a comfortable topic to broach, to say, hey, you have to leave a friend or a family member or a colleague or a leader or a mentor behind. But we all have our limitations. And as leaders and mentors and coaches, our job is to support the growth of others and hopefully find someone there that's going to help support us. So understanding that why, and why you're doing it and what you're doing it, is really important. And that gave me a lot of things to think about, because I did have a gap in my higher education. I went from my bachelor's and rolled through into my master's and completed it, but I took some time off, and it was a choice I made before I started my doctorate degree, because my son was at that point in life when he was in junior high and high school, and very impressionable, and I wanted to be that good father figure for him, to say, hey, it's not just about work, it's about family too, and being there for
Right.
your
Yep.
family. So that why was always there. Why is because I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to prove to myself. The bachelor's degree was almost to prove to other people. The master's degree was almost to say, hey, yeah, I did that and I did this. But that doctorate degree was really for myself, to say, you can achieve this, you will achieve it, but you need to take time for your family and understand what you need to do to get there, so you don't lose everything in the process. Because that has happened to some people throughout their careers and their own trajectories, that they totally disassociate from everyone And that's a very big price to pay, for
Right.
success, or to make a goal or a dream come true. So when we think about, what are we doing to keeping these dreams alive, we have to understand, what are we willing to give up, and what should we give up, and what should we not give up. It might be faster if we give up everything around us, but you've just given up everything around you. So what if you take a little bit longer and keep everything still intact? So when we're talking
Right.
about keeping the dream alive, there's a lot of pieces that go into this.
Right. Yeah, I just want to touch on, the fact that sometimes, you mentioned it, that sometimes you have to change your environment, and which
Mm-hmm.
sometimes means that you have to walk away from
Make some of those painful
people,
decisions.
or yeah, I mean, because could come down to um, individuals maybe hindering you.
Or
It may
maybe you're
not
not
be
doing it for
helping
the
you.
right reason. So,
Or yeah, it's still having that alignment to know that you're doing it for the right reasons, and that your goal is achievable, but understanding that some things will have to change. And I
mhm,
think back to, when I was working on my education journey, I did mine just straight through,
mhm,
because I knew I wasn't going to be able to take the time and, and come back. I knew I wouldn't come back, so that was my challenge, to push through, 9 years straight. But you're right, it's still um, having to keep that balance with the family, making sure I didn't push them away. And to be honest, I believe it actually made us stronger,
mhm.
just because, they knew they had a role to play, I had a role to play, so we all worked together. And that's why I'll always, you know, help them understand that it was because of them that I was able
Mhm.
to achieve that milestone or that goal.
Yeah,
So they help keep my dream alive,
yeah.
by being the individuals they were. So, yeah, I think it's very important that you have people in your corner, that are helping you, rooting for you, pushing you forward, keeping you above water when you feel like you can't,
Mhm.
get that other stroke, get enough breath to hold you above the water. They keep you up afloat. So that's very important, to have those key people in your life that are helping you and not hurting you or hindering you. So I
Yeah, and
just
I know
want
we've
to touch
talked a
on
lot
that.
about maybe these external influences keeping us down. But what about just general stumbling? That's part of the learning process. I
Right.
mean, if one of my professors said, if you already knew this, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
So, what about those trials and tribulations? It's kind of like learning to ride that bike. You fall down. Do you just like blame it on the bike and walk away, or do you brush yourself off, get back on it, and say, I'm going to do this? And another analogy is, it's not the tool, it's the user of the tool that determines the success, right? So, um, I think about, all the times I've fallen, I've stumbled, and there was no one around that caused it. It was just my own learning process. What are you doing to keep that dream alive then? You can't blame everything on everyone.
Right.
Sometimes you have
Right.
to own your misses. You have to own when you fall and trip and stumble, and crawl through the dirt to stand back up. What are you doing then to keep that dream alive? What are you reaching into? How far are you going inside yourself to dig to get through that? And some of our military training taught us that in a life and death situation, what are you going to do? What's driving you to make sure that you make it out? And I know corporate America's, and the job, maybe some careers are not that critical in perspective where life and death is on the line. Maybe it's a printer jam or something like that. But what are you doing to get through those obstacles that are no one's fault? It's just an is what it is. What do you do to get that to keep going? What's that fuel when you're starving and you're tired and you just don't think that you have anything left inside of you? Where do you go to find that push to keep you going to the next level? And and we don't have the answers, but it's something that you need to understand about yourself. and
Right.
and sometimes you don't know what that is until you actually go there and have to learn what it is that's really driving you, and where you can go to yourself, how you can depend upon yourself to overcome these challenges, so you can keep that dream alive and become successful and achieve that dream.
Well, maybe to answer a little bit of that, I think one exercise people can do is just think about, when they overcame something that was really
Mm,
challenging or something that,
yeah.
they didn't think they could do, but achieved it. I think just having that muscle memory to go back and think,
Mhm.
okay, so this situation happened to me and I overcame it. What steps did I take? What mental approach did I take? Because you said it earlier, in the military, we are pushed beyond our limits that we think we're done. When they say
Mhm.
we got to run a mile and then we end up running 5 or 6 miles and your body is telling you no, but then your mind says, yeah, you continue to go. So
Mhm.
I think that's where people, if you're struggling with something or you're trying to remember how to keep that dream alive, think back to an obstacle that you had to
Yeah.
overcome, a
Remember those successes,
situation.
those
Yeah,
those milestones that
and
you've made on the
e
way.
exactly. So just kind of duplicate whatever that was, and of course, the situation may be different,
Mhm.
but the process that you use or,
Yeah.
to figure it out or to and maybe you have to compile a few instances where you overcame things. But I think that's very important just to go back again, that critical self-reflection and
Mhm.
think about when you were faced with a similar situation. What
Mhm.
actions did you take? What did you avoid, or what did you try and it didn't work? Now try applying that to this new situation or whatever you're facing today.
And if you don't have anything that you can really fall back on because it is different, get creative. That's where that
Right.
creative, like you said earlier, keeping that open mind about other possibilities and ways to
Right.
accomplish things. So we're getting close to time. What final thoughts do you have there, Joe?
Well, I apologize for having a couple of blank
Derailments.
spells in there, but I just had so many things going through my mind, and rather than interject and stop Dave, I would try and hold on to it, and I would forget it. But yeah, because we think of keeping our dreams alive. I go back to again when I was a kid that I didn't know I could continue to dream. I thought
Mhm.
once my dream was done for, I couldn't dream it. So now that's why I say I keep my mind open to the possibilities. And I think that helps to feed my dreams that
Mhm.
anything's possible if I, commit to it and do what it takes to get there and not accept no for
Mhm.
an answer, always seeking to push forward, move forward, and whatever it takes. So again, we all have the potential to do great things.
Mhm.
It's just, I think part of it is us understanding that we have that potential. So I just encourage everybody to keep your dreams alive.
Yeah. Well said. I'm just going to throw out there, celebrate even the small steps. Like you said, as long as you're moving forward, you're succeeding. So not
Right.
every day is going to be that aha moment or that big, display of fireworks. Sometimes it's just those little things to keep you going. So celebrate those and just know that you're going to get there and understand why you're doing these things, and like Joe said, what are the possibilities that are out there? If you want it, you'll achieve it.
Right.
So with that, we'd like to thank our viewers and listeners for joining us for another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. If you like what you heard and saw, well, if you like what you heard, then give us a like, share, because that's what this is about. Sharing our experiences and knowledge with everyone to help everyone, our colleagues and friends and family around us. So um, keep tuning in. We really appreciate your viewership and your commitment to what we have to offer. And with that, we'd like to tell you to keep on being your not so ordinary you.